Welcome to Cultimatum, the culture of cults, a podcast dedicated to supporting survivors of cults and human trafficking. This show is hosted by myself, Anonymous Andrew.
And my name is Melody. I'm going to be Andrew's co-host. I'm also a cult survivor myself from a cult called the House of Yahweh. I am a cult advocate and creator and administrator of a cult support group on Facebook called Cult Escape and Recovery. For guests on our show, we do want them to understand that we respect privacy concerns. You can always remain anonymous or use a fake name.
And Melody, this is a safe haven for those who have been in a cult, survived, and escaped, and are now on a journey of recovery, trying to put their life back together. So join us as we learn together about the culture of cults.
And Andrew, we also want to add a trigger warning that some episodes may contain explicit subjects including sex abuse, rape, human trafficking, suicide, and other potentially disturbing topics.
Welcome to Cultimatum, the culture of cults. And my name is Anonymous Andrew. And hello, Melody.
Hi, Andrew. How are you?
I am doing well. So, what we're going to hear today is one of the episodes that I did on the other podcast, the Anonymous Andrew podcast, when I was doing the Twin Flames universe investigation. This one is Megan Plante, that's Shaleia's real name, her birth name, and the episode is about one of her high school friends came forward and wanted to talk about it. And I think you got a chance to listen to it, right?
I did. And I part of what I like about the Twin Flames universe series in general is I like to see these examples of cults that are not totally based in religion, because a lot of people tend to have this closed-minded view of what a cult is, and it's not always a religion. It can be spiritually based, but not necessarily religious. And so I find that, first of all, very interesting. But this in particular episode is interesting because you get a little bit of a glimpse into who Shaleia was, or who she was perceived to be by her classmates, or at least one of her classmates, before she met Jeff. And possibly, kind of, it almost gives an insight onto who is the one kind of pulling the strings behind the scenes in the TFU universe. Like, is this... Who's really in charge here? Is it Jeff or is it Shaleia? Because I think some people, it's hard to tell, and I think even the documentaries kind of make it slant both ways. Like, if you don't know anything on the inside, you are left at the end of the episode going, are they really doing that together, or is he in charge? But I get the idea that Jeff is the one more pulling the strings.
And if you listen to the episode, I rented a room to Jeff and Shaleia. The woman talks about how Jeff was really the one who was instigating everything and the one that was in control. And in this episode, I'm not going to give too much away. I want everybody to hear it. But the woman who went to high school with Megan, she said Megan was not like that in high school. She was more of a follower. So it's interesting to see the progression.
And what I will say is that can also be a little bit of, again, by design, by cult leaders. They like to surround themselves with cronies and inner circle people, and people that they basically their go-to people they know that will basically take the fall for them and do their dirty work. And then they kind of keep their hands clean because they have these people doing, this is an extreme example, but look at Charles Manson. He had people literally murdering him.
Yeah.
He's a prime example of somebody who kept his hands really clean. He was not directly involved, but he was the one behind the scenes, moving all the puppets, pulling all the strings. Yeah. But yes, it's just a prime example.
Good example.
Yes.
That's a very good example. Yeah. Well, for those who may not have listened to the pod series I did on Twin Flames, you will, really, all you have to do is watch the documentaries, but I'd like you to listen to the show. You will get a real sense that Jeff is a narcissist, a control freak, and a psychopath.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
and he could sue me if he wants, but it is what it is, and I don't think anybody would disagree with me unless you're in TFU. So, all right, we're blabbering.
Yes.
And I'll probably
We'll
get
go
myself
on.
in trouble.
Let's go ahead and we'll go on with the episode.
Greetings, everybody. Anonymous Andrew back with you with another episode, and this is episode number 3 in my Twin Flames Universe Exposed or expose or docu-series or whatever. I haven't really figured a name for it yet, but I have had several people willing to come forward and talk about the Twin Flames concept, and because of what TFU is doing to the Twin Flames concept, they're really making a mockery of it. So the last 2 episodes, I had 2 young women to come on to talk about Twin Flames, the concept, and that they're in relationships. Today, I'm digging a little deeper, and I am very thankful and very grateful to a young lady named Kate, that is not her real name. And she came forward, and Kate, well, let me say hello, Kate, and welcome to my podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. No, you are doing me a big service. And everybody, this is fantastic. Kate, let's just get it out there. Kate went to high school with Megan, a.k.a. Shaleia, right? So for those who are not following the bouncing ball, there is Jeff and Shaleia. Is it Shaleia or Shaleia?
It's Shaleia.
Shaleia.
That's how they pronounce it, yeah.
Shaleia changed her name from Megan to Shaleia when she either joined this organization or married Jeff, or I have. Do you have? So why don't you jump in here and tell us a little bit about your backstory, how you know her, why you came forward, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So I guess I could start by talking about how I found out about this Twin Flames universe and how Megan was connected to it. So her and I are both from a pretty small community, like 50,000 people, Northern Ontario, Canada. We both went to a Catholic high school, fairly religious and strict. So another high school friend of mine was saying, have you heard of this Twin Flames documentary on Netflix? And I said, no. And she said, well, we went to high school with someone, the leader. I was like, what? She said, yeah, it's some kind of cult in the States, and apparently Megan Plante is one of the leaders. And I said, oh, I know that name. And so I went to my yearbooks, and sure enough, like I did go to high school with her, and I was friends with her in the first 2 years of high school that I went. She was a year ahead of me. And yeah, oh my gosh, like, and it
Shock.
yes, complete shock, because I just can't picture or wrap my brain around the fact that she's become who she has become. And knowing what I knew and of that part of Megan, knowing her back then, I just can't picture her being the instigator that they kind of painted her out to be, more so in the Amazon documentary than the Netflix one. But yeah, I ended up getting sucked into this big rabbit hole and following along the documentaries and just kind of shocked and also quite saddened for her, because I did not see that happening to her. I did not see that trajectory in her life. So I found your post on Facebook and asking for people to come on to discuss it. I know they interviewed one of our friends from high school in the Amazon documentary, but it was fairly brief. And I just kind of wanted to talk a bit more about the Megan Plante that I knew in high school, and maybe get maybe people will better understand how she came to be Shaleia, the leader of the Twin Flame, one of the leaders of the Twin Flames universe.
Well, let's discuss that for a second. And we were talking about this just before we recorded. You used the word one of the leaders of this, but before we recorded, you said that was not her type of personality, that she wasn't a leader. Do you think something changed, and I gave you my theory is that, well, first of all, do you have any idea how she met Jeff? Which, by the way, is not his real name either, right?
Yeah. I know in the documentary, during one of their summits or conferences, he said he met her and she was living in a garage, sleeping on a mattress, which I find hard to believe there as well. Like, I don't know if that's maybe more of a, like, rags to riches story to try to suck people in, like, look at us, we've created something from nothing, and
right,
we've crawled out of the ashes, and we're, so much better now that we've found our twin flames. So I find it hard to believe that that's the conditions that she was living in at the time. So, but I mean, I wouldn't know 100% because her and I did drift apart. After those first 2 years of high school, she started, her religious views started becoming a bit more extreme. And she started becoming quite judgmental of people who didn't really strictly follow Catholicism. So, and I was starting to question things about the religion. And I mean, I don't practice anymore. I'm not a practicing Catholic, but I was born and raised. But
Me too.
I didn't share those views. And I started questioning things and going, like, that doesn't feel right anymore. Whereas her, it was like, oh no, this is what we have to do. We must follow these rules, and we must, continue on, God's path for us. So I can kind of see how she continued on with those, like, extremist views. And she didn't have the greatest home life, I know that, especially after her mother passed. She had quite a difficult time after that. I believe she was living with an aunt.
Okay, stop right there.
Yeah.
So I was just going to ask you, in high school, so in 9th and 10th grade, I guess it was, you said you were friendly with her. Mm-hmm. Did you know her parents and what kind of family she came from?
No, I didn't know her parents. We never hung out at her home. She was always at other people's homes, or we would do group activities. She was a part of a lot of clubs in school. But after her mom passed, there was definitely a shift in her manner.
Oh, her mom passed in high school.
Yes, yeah. So
Oh.
I believe she was in grade 10, I was in grade 9 when her mother passed. So I think I believe her dad was living in the States at that time, so she had to go live with an aunt.
Okay.
So I mean, I don't know 100% what happened after that, but I do know that she had a challenging home life after her mom passed. And she withdrew a little bit.
Okay. So there's a period. So let's put this in a time perspective. What year was this that you were 9th grade? What? Because I don't know how old you are now.
Yeah, it would have been 2000.
Okay. So that means you would have graduated in 2003, 4?
2004. Yep.
2004.
Yep.
Which would have put you around 18. So it's 2024. So that puts you and her approximately 38.
Yep.
Okay. So her mom passes. Her dad is living in the States, which we don't know why that is. So she goes to live with her aunt. And then something happens from then until when she meets Jeff, who claims she met her in a garage sleeping on a mattress.
Mm-hmm.
So something has happened. So there's a gap there that we don't know what happened. Okay.
Yeah.
What? All right, so let's go back to, I guess, more of the high school. By the way, to the audience, this podcast is audio only right now, but it will be on YouTube. And we do have some pictures from the yearbook that we'll be posting on YouTube, and you'll be seeing them. So if you're hearing this and you want to see the video version of it, you just go to my YouTube channel, which will be below in the show notes. I almost wish I could pull the pictures up and we could talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Kate is anonymous, so you will not see Kate in the yearbook. So the yearbook has pictures of Megan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I did notice there was a picture of Megan, and then there was somebody next to her, and her face was blacked out. Was that you or another person?
It was other people. I wasn't sure how anyone
Oh no,
else
we can't
would
do that.
feel.
We're not going to post.
Yeah.
We're not going to put somebody completely without permission on there. So Megan, on the other hand, has become a public figure, so I think we can do that. So tell me a little bit what's going. So you said you're from a small town in Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Northern Ontario, yeah.
Okay, what a long distance to go from Ontario to, well, maybe I don't know how long because I'm not sure exactly where in Ontario, but how she ends up from Ontario all the way down. At some point, they were in California, and then they're in Minnesota. I think are they based in Minnesota?
I think it's Michigan.
Michigan, thank you.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Minnesota, Michigan. Okay. Us Americans, we think we know our states. Just seemed like in 20 years, how did it all fall apart? Where she became, because you said earlier that you knew her not to be a leader. Mm-hmm. Explain what that meant. What do you meant by that?
She was more so like a follower. She didn't really initiate plans. She didn't initiate activities. It was more so like, oh, you guys are doing this. Can I hang out too? Or like someone else would organize a group activity and she would tag along. She wasn't the type to like be loud or boisterous or stand out in the crowd. She was quiet. I'd say reserved, a lot more reserved after her mom passed.
Would you say she was an introvert?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she followed the crowd wherever it went.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were a good group of friends. Like we weren't, we didn't get into trouble. We weren't, we didn't do anything really bad. I mean, we were in a Catholic school, so wasn't a whole lot we could do. But like we were a pretty good group of friends. We liked to kind of collect the outsiders. Anybody that we noticed was lonely or like didn't have a really good group of friends to hang out with. Hey, come hang out with us. We like to have fun over here. But yeah, like I wouldn't label her a leader. Like I mean, I know I say she's a leader of the Twin Flames universe at this point, but I genuinely get a sense that Jeff is the leader.
Correct.
And
That's
she's
my
going
sense.
along with it.
And okay, so let's take a little left turn or right turn there, and let's talk about that. So and this is just conjecture and an opinion, not fact, but when you watch those documentaries, there has to be something wrong with Jeff in the mental sense. Many of the cults that we have seen in the United States and around the world in the past, and I think you're probably old enough to remember Waco, Texas, what happened down there. there were many cults and that happened that ended in tragedy because they have these compounds and they ended up what they were doing was illegal and either there were drugs or there were guns or whatever, and the FBI got involved and they had to go arrest them for. You know what I found interesting when I watched the documentary, and I mentioned this in a previous episode. I have no knowledge of what the law enforcement in the United States is doing about this. There could very well be a task force looking into this. Mm-hmm. But in the documentary, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was one of them where it was the journalist from Vanity Fair. I forget her name. She went down there, and there was a time when two detectives, I think, showed up, and they came, knocked on the door, and said, "We have some questions for you," and Jeff invited them in, and they directly asked Jeff, "We have allegations of rape, and and there were two or three others allegations." And if I remember correctly, Jeff said, "No, that's not what we're about, and that's not what we're doing." And they basically said, "Thank you for your time," and they walked out. Do you remember it happening that way?
I from what I recall, I think it was like a welfare check for someone else. Maybe.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, if he's as intelligent and conniving as they portrayed him,
right,
it will be easy for him to show that there's nothing wrong.
Right.
He will show them what he wants them to see.
Correct.
Yeah. So I honestly, like, I'm not shocked that their law enforcement didn't do anything.
But I would like to think that any law enforcement here in Canada, around the world, are not naive enough to just take somebody's word for it. Mm-hmm. It's like, this is a horrible example, but it's like if I had a significant other living here and she called the police and said that I put my hands on her, and the police came and I looked at him and said, "No, I didn't." And they go, "Oh, okay, thank you," and they walked out. It doesn't work that way. If there's allegations of something seriously as rape and some of the other allegations that are going on there, I would think there'd be a task force looking into this. And I don't know whether Netflix and Amazon just didn't want, or the law enforcement just said, "We're not going to share any information with you." That's possible too. They may have just said, "We're not talking to you right now. We have nothing to say." They may have gone to them for a statement, and they probably said, "We have no statement."
I think there was a little blurb in one of the documentaries that they did refer the case to the FBI.
Correct.
To see if there was anything illegal going on. So, I mean, I'm with you. Like, I would certainly hope that there's some kind of task force assigned to watching them at this point and trying to find something to shut them down.
Yeah. So let's talk about why they should be shut down. And again, this is just as a disclaimer, all this information that we're about to repeat is from the documentary. So this is not any inside knowledge or hearsay. It's what Amazon and Netflix portrayed in their documentaries, that there are allegations of rape, meaning that if Jeff assigned a twin flame to somebody, so there is John Smith, and then he said Mary Jane had to be his twin flame, and that Mary Jane needs to have sex with John whenever he wanted to, and he could force himself on her. That's basically rape. Even in the United States, in a marriage, the wife has to consent to marital sex. If she says no, it's no. What Jeff was saying was, if your twin flame wants sex, you have to give it to him. Mm-hmm. Am I correct in that? That's what they were portraying.
Yes.
So that's what's going on in the rape area. And then let's not forget all of the employees who are working there. From what I understanding, if you become a coach there, you have to work your way up and you have to pay a coaching fee to get trained. And then when you become a coach, you have to give as much as 50% of your earnings back to Jeff. So, and then there's also people working there for free, right? So there's labor laws being broken there, I believe. And then they try to become tax-free with being a religious organization, which there is no basis for that because neither of them are ordained, right? Neither of them are a priest or a pastor or have had any training as far as according to the documentary. So, all right, let's get back to Megan a little bit. What have you had any contact with her after? So when you heard about this, when somebody came up to you and said, did you hear about somebody in our town is in a cult? Did you ever try to reach out to her, or are you friends on Facebook or at any, like, let's say before you even found out, were you ever friends on Facebook or anywhere, like Snapchat or something?
No, we drifted apart when she was in grade 12. I was in grade 11. Her religious views were starting to become a lot more extreme. She was, expecting people to behave according to, our Catholic rules, I guess you could say. And I was more so starting to question the religion, question whether or not I actually believed in it. So we kind of drifted apart in that sense because she was becoming quite judgmental, and really didn't like that I was questioning these things and not kind of following along. So we lost touch after she graduated. That would have been, I was in grade 11, she was in grade 12. After she graduated, I never saw or spoke to her again.
Okay. The whole thing is just a shame. It's shocking to hear that somebody that there are many friends from my high school years that some of them I am in contact with through Facebook or other means, but to find out that somebody from high school that I knew as one person, a personality, is now national news, running because I believe while Jeff might be the leader, she's legally married to him. Am I correct? Okay, so she, just by marriage, they both, because I've seen her on the YouTube back him up. So when he says something, she will reinforce that.
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on that? Because you said that you didn't know her to be that way. So
I think it speaks to her, like the following, like she'll follow along. She repeats what he says. She reinforces what he says. From what I saw, I didn't go on their YouTube channel and watch any of their YouTube videos because I really didn't want to give them the views or the promotion,
neither have I
guess.
Yeah.
So the only clips that I've seen are the ones that were put in the documentaries. So even watching those clips, she doesn't really seem to be leading any conversations. She seems to be more so following along with what Jeff says. So yeah, like I jokingly tell people now, because now we're all talking about it. The more that people are becoming aware of these documentaries and realizing, like, oh my gosh, like she came from here. Like, we've joked about, like, there's no way that this town bred a cult leader, but you never know. Like you said, It's been 20 years. Anything could have happened. And if she wound up in Michigan, I'm pretty sure that's where her dad was living. So maybe that's what brought her to the States. But anything could have happened to her between high school and meeting Jeff, but I genuinely feel that she was probably in a dark and lonely place and really truly did believe in this whole concept of soulmates or twin flames or, you know, God's will. And he latched onto that, and she latched onto him because she saw he could be successful and he could probably take her out of her circumstances.
Yeah.
And it's probably just snowballed from there. And I mean,
I agree. I agree
myself,
100%.
yeah, like, and I mean, myself, like, I was in a marriage that there was domestic violence, so I can empathize if that's the situation that she's in right now. If this is a case of domestic violence and she's just like, she's in too far over her head to get out, I can certainly empathize with that. So that's kind of like, I know the Amazon documentary, her dad said, you know, she was absolutely capable of doing this. She's a master manipulator. That's not the Megan that I knew in high school. So,
Yeah.
it's truly unfortunate. It really is.
So he is not on board with what she's doing at all.
Her father?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like in the documentary, like, they don't have any contact. And
No contact, yeah.
But he also seemed to believe that she was like Jeff, and she was probably the instigator or the kind of leader. But you don't see that in the YouTube clips that they showed in the documentaries. No. Like, it's him. He's front and center, and she's sitting there beside him, supporting him, reinforcing what he's saying. Yep, you're right, or yep, that's right, Jeff, and yep, look at me now, Jeff, and you saved me. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing is just, it's sad that somebody goes down that path.
And then turns around and starts taking advantage of other people in similar situations in their lives, right? Like, that's truly, like, what's disgusted me, really, about these, like, this whole twin flames universe and how they're preying on people when they're at their most vulnerable. So, but I can see Jeff doing that with Megan.
Well, that's the theory that I think we both agree that Jeff found Megan down in her luck. If this story about the garage and the mattress is even remotely true, maybe it's exaggerated, but maybe she was down on her luck. He found her, picked her up, maybe genuinely was attracted to her and wanted to help her. There may have been genuine intention there. Because when I believe when they first met and they got together, the TFU hadn't existed yet. They were just doing spiritual. I think they even moved. Didn't they go to Hawaii at first and they were running a spiritual thing?
I think he did. I think that he was in Hawaii for a little while and he was running some kind of adventure business or something, and then he came back to the States.
That's before he met Megan.
Yeah, I think that's when he met her, when he came back.
Okay. All right. I'm silent because I'm just thinking about it. It's just... So let me ask you this, and then we'll wrap it up. We met on Facebook, and there's two groups on Facebook that are helping family members and ex-members of TFU. One's called... Twin Flames Universe Exposed, and the other one is Escaping the Twin Flames Discussion Group. And anybody is welcome to join if you are an ex-member of TFU, if you're a family member of TFU who has a child or an adult child still in there, or a friend like you who has friends that got sucked into this cult and by the way, I don't think we made this clear. When you join this cult, they separate you from your family. They make it that they tell you that your family, even I think they even tell you that their family abused you as a child. And they make you think that. Yeah. And
yeah, when they do that, is it MAP? Some kind of MAP
Yep.
thing that they do? Yeah, they try to convince you that you've got childhood trauma and that your family's not supportive. And yeah, they really isolate them and take them away from their families. It's awful.
So this Facebook group is helping many people who find themselves separated from their loved ones who have been drawn or sucked into this TFU. And I urge the audience, if you're listening to this, I would imagine half the audience has probably already seen the documentary, but if you have not seen it, I urge you. I was talking to my son the other day. My son and I, he loves my podcast, but I asked him the other day, are you listening to the recent episodes? And he said, no, I've been busy. He's an accountant and it's tax season. And I said, well, there's this Twin Flames controversy going on, and I'm looking to do an expose on a documentary on it. And he had no idea. And I told him to go watch the Netflix thing. And he just texted me last night. He said, oh my God, I can't believe people fall for this stuff. And so it's not, we had a separate chat after that, but it's not, I don't think people fall for this. I think you hit it on the nail a little earlier. There are people who are lonely, down and out, who either left an abusive marriage or an abusive relationship, or have never had a loving relationship, and are vulnerable and looking for a soulmate, or think maybe that TFU is some sort of a matchmaking service. Hey, if I join this and I pay, because initially I think they only say it's $250 to join, and then of course once they get that, you have to keep adding money to it. But I can understand why people join thinking that they will find their soulmate, aka Twin Flame. But once you find out that it's not really what Jeff marketed it to be, then I would jump right out. I would cut my losses and say, this is not what you know.
Well, he's giving a guarantee. Like, I will guarantee you will find your soulmate, your twin flame. So,
And that,
I mean, if people are out there and lonely and desperate and vulnerable, and he's out there with that guarantee and such a large following, like his YouTube channel is fairly big, the Facebook group is fairly big. I mean, I can absolutely see why people would get sucked into that.
Well, let me ask you, what is that? A guarantee? Guarantee or your money back?
I don't think he says that. I think in the
no, I don't think so.
He guarantees that you're going to find your twin flame, but nothing about money.
Right. So usually a guarantee is backed up by something. Like, I guarantee that this will work. If not, I'll give you your money back. You know, you go buy a car, you have a warranty or guarantee that it'll run for, I don't know, whatever plan you buy. And if it doesn't, they will fix it for free, you know? So when Jeff says, I guarantee you that I'll find you a twin flame, but you have to give me either $200 or $4,000, whatever his plans are, because I think he has different tiers, right? Different types of.
Yeah.
What's the guarantee? If you don't find me my twin flame, I want my money back. So, but that's not what he's saying. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where I think he started matchmaking between group members.
Which went south because that's where the transgender started coming in. He started matching same-sex people, genders, and then told them, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not very good with the concepts of transgender. I just don't follow that. I have nothing against it. I have no problem with it. But when I heard top surgery, like he was having people have top surgery, is that when they remove the breasts?
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So he's pairing, let's say, two females together, and telling one of them to to trans into a male, correct?
Yeah, he's labeling one the divine feminine and the other one the divine masculine. And then he's telling the divine masculine, well, you need to show up like a divine masculine now. So, and everything that entails. And the documentary, alluded to some people being told to change their pronouns, change their names.
Right at this point, Kate lost power to her laptop. So I'm going to say thank you, Kate, for joining me. Very courageous of you to step forward. And we will continue the Twin Flames investigation. This is the third episode, and I do have a fourth one lined up. This will be on YouTube. So when you hear this, it may not be at the same time. I'll post this on my podcast. Then it'll be on YouTube several days later. So thank you, Kate, for joining me. Thank you for sharing. And wow, this whole thing is still mind-boggling to me. The whole concept of how these two people are. Hearing what Kate described of Megan, I do think that she was somehow brainwashed into this. I don't know if she's doing this out of her own free will. If Jeff has something over her, it's Jeff that I think is the one that needs to be brought down. The man is just not a stable human being, so we'll leave it at that. All right, Anonymous Andrew saying thank you for tuning in, and this will be continued. I promise you that.
Well, that was an excellent insight into Shaleia / Megan Plante.
Yep.
/ Twin Flames Universe Queen.
Yep. What a
whatever title you might call her. And I like how Kate dove into explaining how she was pretty a devout Catholic at some point, and that might be a little window into how she might have been more susceptible to some of Jeff's coercion or manipulation. And I'm not saying that to say anything against Catholic religion or anything. I'm just saying they can be very ritualistic, and maybe somehow that did make her more susceptible. Being raised with a lot of that kind of ritual might have made her mind more moldable for Jeff. I don't know, just throwing that out there.
Melody, I don't think I've ever said this on the podcast. I might have hinted to it. I grew up in the Catholic Church, very Roman Catholic. My mother was an extraordinary minister. She gave communion out to the sick people in nursing homes. My father was in the Knights of the Holy Sepulchre, which is like this big group. And I think the Roman Catholic Church is a very fancy cult in a sense.
Certainly a more accepted one. A large one.
Accepted. I'll give you that. But let's take a little look at what some of the things that go on there. There's a lot. They ask for money. It's donations. They don't pressure you. But I remember I used to work for the Catholic Church, and we would have to raise money for capital campaigns, and we would pressure them. We would have meetings with the parishioners, and like they needed $30 million to rebuild the rectory. So we would have, right. I worked for this company who went down to one of the dioceses somewhere, I'm not going to mention where, and we would have meetings with all the wealthy parishioners and beg for them to write big checks,
Yeah.
Let's not forget the sexual abuse that went on for how long?
Yes.
With the altar boys and other. So I'm not saying they're a traditional cult
leader.
in the cult. Yeah, but yeah.
Yes. There are at least similarities.
There's similarities, and I got out. So
right.
I left the Roman Catholic Church. So.
And also, but anyway, then you've got the trauma of losing her mom, which might have also made her more vulnerable. Right. Just because cult leaders do look for people that have some type of vulnerability that they can take advantage of. And if that created some kind of vulnerability in Megan / Shaleia, then it's possible that Jeff used that to his advantage.
Right. Even changing of her name. You
Yes.
know, I don't know what Shaleia means. I'm sure it's either a biblical name. By the way, you mentioned something that they weren't religiously based, and that's correct. They're not.
More spiritual.
But Jeff often, right, but Jeff often associate, what's the word? He identifies as Jesus Christ, because there's a couple of times where he took a picture of
Yes.
Jesus and he put it right next to him and he went like this. And he says, I look like Jesus, you know? So
So go
it's not
figure.
based in religion at all, but
Right. They
go
don't
figure,
they don't
right?
read the Bible or use any scriptural references,
No.
but he wants to claim he's Jesus, so it's kind of a weird combination.
It's very odd. It's just the way he twists even the concept for twin flames. If you believe in the Greek mythology of twin flames, and there's the 7 steps that to become a twin flame, they're abominating that by saying, "Hey, come pay us $4,000, and you can take a
Right.
course on how to learn how to find or match with your twin flame." And ultimately, he would just assign one to you anyway. So I'm paying you $4,000 to take this course on how to find a twin flame, and then he just said, "No, Melody, you're Andrew's twin flame."
Yes.
And so what happened to the $4,000 that I just gave you? You know, so just a whole mess.
Exactly.
So,
Well, and then
but
if you're both
great
getting
episode.
4,000, then it's 8,000, and that just keeps adding up, right?
Yeah, and that's how he got his Corvette and his Porsche and his sunglasses that he only uses for the Corvette, and it's just the whole thing is a mockery.
It's like those
But
those multi-level marketing infomercials that claim that they can tell you how to make money, when the real way they're making money is by selling you the promise that they're going to show you
Yeah,
how to make
exactly.
money. That's how they're making money.
right. and if they have the insight on how to make money, why would you share it with me? You know, except
Yeah.
that you're not sharing it. I'm paying for it, but yeah,
Yes. Yes,
Going
it's
off.
a similar concept to where basically they're selling you a dream. They're selling you a
Right.
dream.
But I want to thank Kate,
Yes.
and of course that wasn't her real name, but I do want to thank her for coming on and sharing her memories of Megan Plante when she was in
Yes.
high school. So again, folks, if you're enjoying the show, please, if you're on Apple, you can leave us 5 stars and a review. You can actually write something. And I have been saying this wrong for the last several months. Spotify, you can only rate the show with 5 stars, of course. Less, but of course
Hopefully
you're
with
going to
5
give us
stars.
5 stars, right? But I was telling people that they can leave comments, and apparently I have been corrected. Spotify may have done that, but they no longer, you can't leave a comment anymore. But anyway, please, if you're liking
follow,
the show, please
and
give
you
us
can
a
share, and you can continue listening and keeping up with our latest episodes.
right.
and of course
you can
follow us on
also
Facebook.
email us
Email us, yes.
and follow us on Facebook. On the name of
Cultimatum.
and the name of the group is
Cultimatum.
Cultimatum on Facebook. So.
Yep.
All right,
We're not
and
hard
maybe
to
share
find.
this show with a friend if you know somebody. No, we are
Yes.
not hard to find. Matter of fact, one of these days I'm thinking about doing a website, because Cultimatum is going to be easy to get. The
Yes,
.com.
I think it's a unique name.
Although
that much is true.
Now that I just said that, somebody will probably buy it.
Oh gosh. Well,
So-
we'll have to hurry.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I might do that tomorrow morning. I just realized that. Okay. Anyway, folks, thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you.
I need the vacation. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yes, sounds good. Bye-bye.